Hello and welcome back. As we move into Act 3, I want you to be thinking about this idea of shifting perspectives. In part, to highlight the idea that each movie we watch represents a different perspective on the characters, on behavior, on people. But also to highlight the idea that every concept we look at, or many of the concepts we look at, can be seen from different perspectives. So, that said, what are the concepts for this unit? Well, each chapter, I want you to think about the biological concept related to the nervous system, which gathers and processes information from neurons so that we can respond to different stimuli and coordinate that response. Really, the nervous system is composed of a number of subsystems. We'll look at the brain more specifically in the next act, but I want you to think about the idea that not only are these different components, but how do they specifically affect behavior? So obviously, you could say every character, their nervous system helped them survive. But what I want you to do is look at specific activities and specific reactions and think about, oh, this part of the nervous system was doing this and this part of the nervous system was doing that. First, so for example, if we look at the autonomic nervous system, if there's something going on where they're excited, we can think about the sympathetic nervous system firing up. And we have to keep in mind that we can't always stay fired up. And so thinking about the parasympathetic nervous system helping us calm back down. Another perspective on behavior that I want you to think about for each of the movies is related to the social influences on behavior. In other words, how much of our behavior, how much of our mental processes are affected because of the people around us. So, one perspective is that related to conformity and the impact of the group. As you read the text, I definitely want you to make sure and look at the work of Solomon Ash. And as you watch the movies, you can think about, okay, what degree do I think they're depicting this character as conforming to a group or shifting away from conformity? And is it consistent with the research? Similarly, each movie shows some aspect of obedience and obedience to authority, which might relate loosely or more directly to Milgram's work, which I hope you do understand. In that process of thinking about the conformity and the obedience, I want you to think back and reflect on the material in the textbook that talks about the role of the individual. And so you may see some examples in the movie where we would expect conformity or obedience, but instead what we see is really a strong individual stand. Another social concept I want you to think about is that of social relations, which includes prejudice and aggression. So, for each of these, I hope you understand the scholarly definition. So, that you understand, in terms of our scholarly knowledge, what are the characteristics of these two phenomena. We're going to see different manifestations of prejudice and of aggression in each of the movies in this act. And just because, Over the Hedge is an animated movie, it's animals and it's not even real, but they still do some nice depictions that kind of lets us look at maybe some more humorous and the more subtle side, but still thinking about prejudice, still thinking about aggression. As you think more specifically about prejudice and review the textbook information, I definitely want you to look at the antecedents, or in other words, the things that we've identified might cause prejudice. In terms of aggression, I want you to understand and think about the biopsychosocial influences and then apply that to understand the behavior in the movie. If you watch 187, there are particularly some particularly interesting examples to think about in there. Another social behavior is that of altruism. In other words, the behaviors of helping others and the related patterns associated with that. This includes what we call the bystander effect. Definitely check that out in the textbook. It's pretty interesting stuff. This isn't highlighted as clearly in all of the movies, but there are definitely scenes in The King of the Jungle and 187 where we see it very vividly and very clearly. So your challenge for the other movies might be asking where we see it a little bit more subtly. And finally, we have this idea of conflict, which I think at a common sense level, oh, I know what conflict is. But I want you to make sure and look at the textbook and think about our scholarly knowledge, the characteristics we attribute to conflict, the patterns that go along with that, like social traps. And think about, am I seeing these play out in the movies, or are they portraying conflict, but only in part? And then, given those conflicts, what can I do to reduce it? Then we'll transition to thinking about another side of the coin, so to speak, in the next video.